Welcome to another instalment in our Teaching Virtually video series. In this clip, we're going to look at various ways of building interactive elements and questioning into your online lessons. Assessing learning isn't just important for teachers to see how their students are grasping new concepts. It's also really valuable for students to put their learning to the test and see whether they've understood things correctly. In a class, verbal questioning is often one of the quickest and most valuable ways of assessing learning. Homeworks and quizzes are another. So what online tools are there for your virtual classroom to replicate these? You no longer have to take a paper or verbal register using online video platforms like Zoom and Microsoft Teams. You can automatically generate reports of attendance. In Teams, go to the Participants panel, select the three dots and download attendance from there. But do note that the register must be downloaded in the meeting before the end of the lesson. In Zoom, the reporting is only available on a licensed Zoom account at this time, so it's not available if you're using a free or basic account. You'll have to wait until 30 minutes after the end of your meeting, then sign into Zoom through a web browser, and in the Reports section, select Usage Reports, then Usage, and search for your chosen session by selecting a date range. When you've found it, hit the participants and you can export the attendance list if you want to. So even though you can get attendance reports with just a click, why not turn registration into an interactive element and assessment? As you call out names on the register, ask each student a question that tests their prior learning. Or perhaps use a question with multiple answers. For instance, name a constellation in the Northern Hemisphere as well as responding to your name. Not only will this help you assess their prior learning, but it will also help to build confidence in your students to participate in what might feel like a very alien teaching environment. The chat function is another way of building dialogue and interactivity between you and your students, especially if students' microphones have deliberately been turned off. In Teams, you can easily post polls into the chat if you have access to Microsoft Forms. These polls can be used to collectively assess student learning as you go through the lesson. On Zoom, you'll need to log in on a web browser and create your polls in advance. Select your meeting, then scroll down to the bottom to add your poll. Alike to attendance lists, the polls function is unfortunately not available in the free version of Zoom. But in your online lesson, you can then bring up the poll whenever you're ready. The responses are made anonymous, so your timid students might feel more comfortable taking part. Adults and children alike love games, so if you're feeling more creative, what better way to engage your students and assess them at the same time than using a funky quiz? There are lots of online tools for this. Kahoot is a great quiz platform. There are a variety of question types you can make use of. You can adjust the time limit students have to answer. You can assign different points to different questions to make the quiz more dynamic, and you can change the answer options too. Images included in your questions can be revealed slowly or left in their original always showing mode. Once you've created your questions, don't forget to select the correct answer. Add more questions if you want, and then select Done when you've finished. Here, I'm going to preview the quiz before sending out. And once you're happy, you'll just need to share the game pin with your students, and they can take part from wherever they are as long as they have a device to join from. Another great tool is my free bingo cards. As an example, come up with a list of questions and answers, type the answers into the bingo creator, and you can generate 30 bingo cards for free. You'll need to send the links out to your students as this isn't done automatically. But when you're ready, you can then call or start the game. Reveal the words one by one, and as each word appears, ask your student the question that would relate to that word. They can then check off the word if it appears on their bingo card. When you've got a student that calls bingo, all you'd need to do is ask for their card number, and you can check their card using the View Card feature. All Office 365 education users now have access to Microsoft Forms, so you can create quizzes to share with your students on Teams with the benefit of responses being collated for you. Here's a quiz I set up earlier. You can see that I've got a section, and you can add new sections to your quiz by going to Add New from the drop-down menu, select Section. But you can also see here the variety of different question types that can be added into your quiz. So let's take a quick look at some of the different question types. You could have a multiple choice question with multiple correct answers if you wanted, but I just want one here. When you've got your options, you can select which will be the correct one, and you can even leave feedback for the different options that students might select. For each of the questions, you can also assign points. So I'm going to assign this question 1 point, and you can even add branching, which means you can direct students from one question to another without necessarily having to go through all the questions if that's what you want of them. Now, the other type of question is your simple text-based response, and you can change the slider there if you'd like a longer response from your students. If you want to include maths equations, you can also do that. Select the 3 dots and click Maths, and there's a variety of symbols that you can incorporate very easily into your question. There's also different types of rating questions. Here you can change the level and also the symbol used. The other type of rating question is your kind of slide scale, and you can change the wording of the extremities on either side. If you need a response in a date format, there's even a question that you can put in for that. In section 2 here, I've listed a few other types of questions. You can have a question where you ask students to rearrange different options into a correct order of some sort. You can have a matrix style question. This one I've turned into a true or false activity. So for different statements, students would need to select the correct option, but of course more options can be added. You can even have students respond by uploading a file. You can limit the number of files and also the size of the files uploaded. This could be really handy if you wanted students to respond with an image or a file, for instance. If you want to include a video into your question, you can also do that by selecting the icon on the side of the text box. I'm going to copy the URL of a YouTube video into the box and select Add, and then you'll see that video appears in my question. I might also want students to respond to an image, and you can also add images. Here I'm going to search an image on the web. I'm going to search for a nebula image, and I'm going to add this one down here, which is the Orion Nebula. You can see that image then appears in my question box. For the questions as above, you can add a correct answer. So in this case, I'm going to state that it is the Orion Nebula. And don't forget that you can format the image. So instead of appearing small like this, I want to make that image much larger so it's clearly visible to students. Now, once you've put your quiz together, you'd likely want to preview it, and there's a preview button so you can see what that quiz will look like to your students. Here's how it would appear if they're accessing it through a computer, and even what it would look like through a mobile device. Once you've had a preview, you might want to very quickly change the themes too to make it look a little special. I've stuck to the default theme here. You might even want to check the settings. So you can change the settings to say that students would automatically receive their results and feedback at the end of the quiz. You can change the settings to do with whether they record their name or if it's anonymous, or how many times they're able to complete the quiz. You might even want to add a start and end date so that students are only able to complete the quiz and send a response in a set time frame. Once you've checked the settings, you're ready to share your quiz. You can email it to your students, or you can copy the link and send it to them. Once the students have completed the quiz, you can check them in the Responses tab. You'll see all your students' responses collated here together. So there's just a few ways of building interactivity and questioning into your online lessons to help you assess student learning, but also for students to test their own understanding. If you found other successful methods of interactivity and questioning for online lessons, please do share them in the comments below. And if you're looking for classroom resources on teaching astronomy and space science, or if you fancy bringing your students along to one of the Royal Observatory's school sessions, then check out the links. You'll find them in the video description below.